And welcome to week 3 of Cage Report. It is the morning of September 10th, 2024. I'm Mike Knockenauer. That's Colton Alder. Got a lot to talk about this week. A lot happened last week in prep sports. Augustana meet for the cross-country team. We had a bunch of tennis meets for varsity. And we obviously had our first home game for varsity football. So let's jump right into it. Let's start off cross-country. You obviously headed up to Sioux Falls to go to the Augustana meet. Takeaways, reflections. How was the team like? How did everyone run? How did it all go down?
So on the meet last Friday, everyone basically got a new personal best. I'd venture to say that all but like 2 or 3 guys on the varsity race got a new best time. So it was definitely a very productive meet, definitely worth the trip down to South Dakota. For the freshman, Leverett Strickland running the fastest ever 5K for a prep freshman at this course with a 17-minute, 10-second time. That's nearly a minute and a half faster than the second place time, and there were a few other freshmen who clocked in top 10 all-time for prep runners in that regard. Aaron Robles and Benny Ewell both ran sub 17-minute times. Ignatius Vogel ran the fastest time for all of the prep runners at this meet with 16 minutes and 32 seconds. That's the 9th best time that a prep runner has ever gotten at Augustana. So it was definitely a very productive meet, and it's nice to see everyone get their new best times and see everyone succeed.
I would be remiss to ask if I didn't ask, what was your time? How did you do?
18 minutes, 21 seconds.
That's what? Is that enough to letter? Is it 1750 or 1850?
1850.
1850? So, well, there you go. So we've got ourselves a celebrity on the podcast now. With that, you guys head up to Mahoney, I believe, Thursday for the Platte River Rumble. What are you guys expecting going forward for that and just going forward for the rest of the season?
I think we're kind of expecting to get a full gauge on who's going to be our varsity guys. I think we already have a pretty good understanding. The top 12 runners at Augustana are running varsity for the Platte River Rumble meet, but we'll have to figure some things out as we go forward, heading into metros and districts and whatnot. As for this meet, I think we're gonna do pretty well. I mean, we've had guys get some really good times so far this year, and should be able to compete for a top spot in the meet in the varsity race.
That's all very promising to hear, especially with it being Coach Tejan's first year, taking over the helm from Coach Tillman. Good to hear from the cross-country team. Let's hop to tennis. 3 of 4 doubles teams went 4-1 this last week, and they finished tied for second in their Saturday meet. Then this week they have triangular tomorrow at Dewey at home, and then they head to play. They have a duel against Pius on Thursday.
As we've been mentioning a bit this year, this tennis team has gotten off to a very good start. They're looking to take the state title back after getting second place last year, and they've definitely gotten off to some good momentum early on. They're going to be one of the main contenders for that state title, and another duel where they end up finishing really highly is another really good sign. This team has been very consistently great early on.
It's also great to hear. Last year, we consistently touch on this just because it's such a huge point. Obviously, with last year's team, runners up at state, and then returning all but one varsity player, obviously there's going to be high hopes. So the fact that they're able to they've been able to produce so far is promising, to say the least. They're able to work in the new guys pretty well in the rotation with who was already there. Guys like Rowan Lunning, Matt McGill, Ben Clausen, Luke McGill, just mixing in the returning talent with the new talent's always always an adjustment. And the way that they've been able to do that so far, I think it's a really promising sign that this team's heading in the right direction, especially as we hit the bulk of the season. And then let's just move on to football. Junior Jays with their first home game of the year this last Friday, picking up the win against Burke. A lot of takeaways from both sides of the ball. Let's start off with offense. Pretty impressive. They went out, did what they were supposed to do, got the job done, and they looked pretty good while doing it.
Yeah, this quarterback room particularly played really well during this game. Combined 10 for 15 for 180 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Tony Caniglio, after a rough week 1, comes back out there, does his job, 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. He, as you mentioned, makes a lot of really smart decisions and did a good job protecting the football as well. He had a 45-yard scramble as well that got them a lot of big yards on a touchdown drive. So, I mean, he played really well, and Elijah Cannon doing well in relief yet again. So.
And yeah, we also have you talked about Tony's scrambling ability. There's that paired with the two-headed monster in the backfield with Jacob Ruby and Angelo Walker. 5 combined total touchdowns, 2 on the ground for each of them, and then Angelo added 1 in the air as well.
Yeah, combined 235 yards between those two guys on Friday, and they're going to need a lot of that going forward as they enter a difficult part of their schedule. One thing that I thought was interesting was after they averaged less than a yard per carry during the DeSmet game, Walker and Ruby averaged a combined over 7 during the Burke game. So this O-line really made a big impact, improved a lot game to game with, I think, DeSmet being as difficult as a test that they were definitely helped get this offensive line some experience and helped them out quite a bit in the run game.
Really the only struggle that we saw was the secondary, which was what we had questions going into the year with the so many new guys, so many new faces, not very much varsity experience. I mean, props to Burke. They came out and they punched the Junior Jays right in the mouth. 78 yards on a screen pass on the third play from scrimmage for Marcus Buchanan. All of one of his 12 catches and a big chunk of his 209 yards and one of his 2 touchdowns he had against the Junior Jays on Friday. The run game was very limited. I think the front line for the Junior Jays did a good job of limiting that. But the passing game from the Bulldogs was pretty strong. Nearly 300 yards from Nate Collins in the air. And that'll be interesting going forward. I talked to Max DeButer after the game on Friday. He said that he's like, the secondary is only going to get better. They're only going to get more experience. They're only going to learn from past experiences. They're only going to improve. And he also thinks that they're going to Burke's definitely one of the more pass-heavy teams in Class A. He was saying he's going to be a lot more confident when they play a team that's more reliant on their run game. He thinks that these D line's going to be able to help keep this team competing in games like those, which leads us into this week. Lincoln Southeast, who's very run heavy, over 200 yards a game on the ground through their first couple of weeks. You're going to be on the call for that one. What do you have so far? I know it's only Tuesday, but what are you looking at? What are you expecting on Friday?
I mean, they definitely do have the element of a passing game. Trey Bolin, their starting quarterback, thrown for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns over the first 2 games of the season, but it's mostly going to be the run attack. Cash Butenbach having 118 yards per game on the ground, and the rest of this team accounting for about another 120 per game. And they're definitely going to be a lot more reliant on that run game. I'm curious to see if they're going to go a little bit more pass against a Junior Jays team much better against the run. But yeah, we'll kind of just have to see.
Yeah, Butenbach with over 30 carries against Lincoln Southwest. Their win against Lincoln Southwest on Friday. It's definitely going to be interesting. What I saw against Burke was whenever the Bulldogs were able to get more horizontal, that's when issues arose. That's when they were able to move the ball downfield more. A lot of what we saw was a lot of quick slants were being completed. That's how Buchanan scored in the first minute half of the game. Looking back, he caught the ball at the line of scrimmage. He just he found a seam and then used his speed to blow past everyone in the secondary. So I think it's going to be interesting. Both the Junior Jays and the Knights probably more reliant on their run game. We're not completely. You and I aren't super. What's the word? You and I aren't super familiar with the game of Lincoln Southeast, but we do know that they're much more run heavy than Burke. They're much more run reliant, and they're ranked 7th in the state. I mean, they're definitely gonna give the Junior Jays a test. I just think it's gonna be a good test for this team because this is their first. This is a pretty big game in the state of Nebraska. They were able to take care of Burke on Friday, but with Lincoln Southeast, it's nothing against Burke, but I think it's gonna be a much tougher task for the Junior Jays.
Yeah, Lincoln Southeast, as you mentioned, definitely a very good team, winning both of their first 2 games by 15 or more points against 2 teams in Grand Island and Lincoln Southwest that are pretty solid. You kind of have to don't really have too much of a gauge on Lincoln Southeast's defense at this point. They allowed 20 points to Grand Island and just 6 to Lincoln West. So kind of have to see on that. But the Junior Jays will definitely look for whatever weaknesses they can in that defense. And this game, as you mentioned, definitely a big test for them with Lincoln Southeast being ranked. And they're going to need to step up in this game, especially with a difficult part of their schedule coming up. I mean, their next 3 games are against Millard West, Papillion, La Vista, and Central. So you need to win this game in order to feel a lot more confident as that difficult part of your schedule starts kicking in as this month goes along.
Especially whenever district play starts and games really start to impact the postseason picture and seeding and all that. Obviously, Junior Jays making the state tournament, I believe. I'm not sure the exact number of years, but it's been over, I believe, a decade and a half of consecutive state appearances for football. So I'm trying to keep that streak alive. And I think that this team is in more than a better place to get there. There's obviously a lot of question marks coming into the new year with so many new faces and so many new schemes and formations, new offense. But overall, I think the identity of the team is still pretty much intact from what it has been. Like, this is a team that's going to fight. This is going to be a team that sticks it through. And as the road gets a little tougher going forward, as we get further into the season, teams get more comfortable with each other. Teams start playing harder. I mean, in high school football, it's any given night, it's football as a whole, but any given night, any team can beat anyone. So I think it'll be a good, interesting year. It's been about the start we expected, I would say. Maybe a little bit of a disappointment when it came to DeSmet, but obviously one of the top teams in Missouri, one of the top, very very well known team around the country. And then going forward, it's gonna be a test. Obviously, Junior Jays with a tough schedule almost every year, and this year's no different.
Yeah, I think at the very least, you have to win one of those games between Papillion and La Vista and Central, because Westside is going to probably be your most difficult test outside of DeSmet. Westside, of course, ranked the #1 team in the state of Nebraska. You can't have too much of a margin for error heading into that game. And yeah, the Junior Jays are really going to need a big win in either one of the games to get them some major points in this district.
It's crazy to say that Westside, as much as they digressed, like they're going to be obviously going to be contenders for the state championship. Ranked first for the first 3 weeks of the season. And Christian Jones committing to Nebraska yesterday, their 4-star linebacker. The amount of talent on that team is just unbelievable. Braylon Warren, their sophomore quarterback, has looked great to start the year, which just shows that they are able to bring in and coach talent at a very high level. So no matter what, it's going to be a test. And obviously, it being one of the biggest rivalries in the state adds on to it. So that'll make things even more interesting. We'll get a better gauge on Westside and all the other schools throughout the year. It's only 2 weeks in. Still lots up in the air. Nothing has been decided. We've still got 7 more weeks of football to play. So I think it'll be a good year. Let's just going around Class A. Is there anything you're looking out for? Anything that's surprised you so far this season?
I mean, the performance of schools like Millard North and Millard South versus big teams from out of state it's impressed me, like being able to hang in there with some of these bigger schools from out of state. I think it shows how like the talent in the state of Nebraska has been going up recently, and it's definitely getting a lot more competitive over the last couple of years. So it's always nice to see the talent level around the state going up and providing a lot more opportunities for these guys to really show themselves around the country and get themselves noticed for college opportunities.
Yeah, just feels like this year the Class A race is just so much more wide open than it was last year. Millard South, Elkhorn South has really impressed me so far. They've looked dominant the first 2 weeks. You've got teams like Millard North who have played very well. Coach Alan Burrell, who was here at Prep our freshman year, coached 2 years at Mount Michael, and now he's at the helm of the Mustangs over there at Millard North, and he's got a heck of a squad over there to start his year.
Yeah, my freshman sprints coach. I'm glad he's doing well.
All right, well, that should do it for us for week 3. Upcoming this week, we have Creighton Prep versus Lincoln Southeast at Central. That will be on CPSN. He'll be on the call alongside Chris Hillebrandt. Other than that, that should do it. We thank you so much for watching this week of Cage Report. As always, I'm Mike Knockenauer. That's Colton Aller. We hope you have a great rest of your week, and go Jays.
All right.